It is now all but confirmed that Labour are going to betray British voters and break their key manifesto pledge not to raise income tax. Today, Rachel Reeves droned on for 45 minutes. You don't want to watch the whole thing because it's so boring you'll fall asleep. Don't worry, I'll summarise it for you. She spent the whole time rumbling on about how all the country's problems and our poor finances are everyone's fault but her own. She has set the scene for the autumn budget by making sure that she doesn't bear any of the blame for the manifesto pledge breaches that are going to be coming in the autumn. Now, before we look at the detail of what she has said, let's just remind ourselves what Rachel Reeves said this time last year after she raised 40 billion quid in taxes in the autumn budget.
And businesses can now be certain that we're never going to have to do a budget like that again. I'm really clear. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes. And that is why at this budget we did wipe the slate clean.
So there we go. Rachel Reeves, this time last year, had insisted after she hiked up national insurance, after she hiked up various other taxes and took 40 billion quid away from the public and into the Treasury's coffers. She said she just needed to do that as a one-off budget to fix the foundations. And then this year it would all be hunky-dory. Now we are looking at even more tax hikes. And she is telling us now that this has got nothing to do with her and it's got everything to do with the people that came before her and global headwinds. She hasn't told us explicitly that she is raising taxes, but she has very clearly done this quite peculiar pre-budget speech a few weeks ahead of the budget, so that she can dampen the blow when she raises income tax and so that she can remove the blame from herself and put it all onto other people. She is playing the victim card, this woman, and she is completely out of her depth. She said she needs to build a bigger cushion in the budget to withstand global turbulence. Now that sounds very airy-fairy, but let me be clear exactly what that means. She is saying, I need more of your cash. She will almost definitely be raising income tax. Let's take a look at some of the details in the Financial Times article going through exactly what she has announced today. So today, she said that the national interest will trump political expediency in this month's budget. So what she is basically saying is, I'm going to be one of those politicians that breaks their promises. I mean, she's broken plenty of promises already, so that's nothing new. And she will say that it is in the name of the national interest that she is hiking up taxes once again. We all know we know tax hikes in general are coming, but it's unclear exactly which taxes they will be. She has been trying to find a way to just tax the rich to get herself out of this, but there's a bit of a problem with that they're all going to Dubai. There are now, I think, 250,000 Brits living over in Dubai, which is crazy, and many of them have a heck of a lot of money and used to employ a heck of a lot of people here in Britain. Reeves used a speech in Downing Street to warn the public and Labour MPs that she would use her budget to tackle debt and that she was determined to put the country on a more sustainable footing. So it's a very good point there about this not just being to talk to the markets and to talk to voters, but this is to send a strong message to Labour MPs. Look, this is the state the country's finances are in. You guys need to pack it in, and if we need to break manifesto pledges, and if we need to make some sort of cuts, you guys are going to need to recognise that it is in the national interest that we do that, because we saw what happened when she tried to cut 5 billion quid off the welfare budget. Huge rebellion, couldn't even get it passed, had to drop those plans to make it more difficult to get PIP payments. Labour officials insist no final decision has been taken yet as to whether they are going to raise income tax or not. We're looking at about 30 billion quid that she needs to find. This figure keeps changing as the OBR keep changing their productivity forecasts. But it clearly, although there's no decision being made, she did this. She didn't need to do this speech. It was a bit unusual. She clearly did it to lay the groundwork for income tax hikes and for really upsetting people. She's trying to dampen the blow by basically giving people a wink about what is to come next. Now, what's happening in the markets? Well, we've seen some articles saying, oh, the pound is crashing, it's a total disaster. But in the Financial Times, they're saying there was a muted reaction to Reeves' speech in the financial markets, with gilt prices falling slightly but remaining higher on the day. The pound was down 0.5% against the US dollar at 1.37, so a bit of movement. I mean, I guess she hasn't made any huge announcements here, and she's kind of confirming that what we already know. We kind of knew income tax hikes are pretty likely in this budget, so I guess this isn't a huge shock for the markets. They already know what is most likely coming. I think this was a case of Rachel Reeves trying to save face and trying to play the victim card, so that she doesn't have to take the blame for income tax hikes. She can blame everyone else. She can blame Brexit. She can blame Liz Truss. She can blame the Tories and everyone else. Reeves's message was partly aimed at the public, but also served as an economics lecture to Labour MPs. Exactly, you've got all of these backbench Labour MPs that are so entrenched in this socialist ideology with an economic policy that just simply is laughable and doesn't even work. Now, if she raises income tax by just 1 penny, so if she puts it from 20% to 21%, or if she puts up all of the, I've seen if she puts up income tax from 20% to 21%, that would raise about 8 billion quid. If she puts all of the bands up by 1p, that would raise about 10 billion quid. Of course, if she does it 2 pence, then maybe she can get 20 billion quid. But of course, this would be very unpopular for Labour. But her other options are taxing the rich. And I think she's finally getting the message after the Treasury and others advising her have said after each option she's come with to put all these little niche taxes on rich people, that it's not going to raise the money because they're all going to move their money around. They're all going to leave. I think she's finally realised that that's not going to work. So she has said now she'll be guided by the principle of fairness, but accepted that excessive taxation on entrepreneurs and wealth creators could backfire. We will seek to get the balance right. My God, maybe she is finally seeing that socialism doesn't work. Now, I want to show you, I'm not going to show you any long clips from her speech because I said it's 45 minutes of her droning on and it is so boring, but I want you to listen to Beth Rigby completely mince her for breaking her promises and betraying the British public. Take a listen.
Chancellor, you made history in your last budget when you increased taxes by £40 billion in the biggest tax-raising budget in over a generation. You said at the time it was a once-in-a-parliament tax-raising budget, and you told me explicitly Labour would stick to our manifesto commitment not to increase taxes that working people pay. Today, do you still stand by both those promises? And if you can't or if you won't, aren't you making a mockery of the voters that put their trust in you at the general election? Thank you.
A mockery of the voters that put their trust in her. That is what Beth Rigby said there. Now wait for Rachel Reeves' response and tell me in the comments whether you think she sounds like a woman who is in control and who is doing a good job, or does she sound like someone who is completely out of her depth and panicking and very nervous on stage? Take a listen.
Thank you very much, Beth. I will set out the individual policies at the budget on the 26th of November. That's not what today is about. Today is about setting the context for that budget. And your viewers can see the challenges that we face, but the challenges that are on a global nature. And they can also see the challenges in the long-term performance of our economy. And the Office of Budget Responsibility will set all that out. They've done the review of the supply side of the economy. That looks at the past, but they use the past to predict the future. And as Chancellor,
You know what's also in the past? The past year and a bit of you being the Chancellor. That feeds into the OBR's predictions, okay? Not just the 14 years of Tory rule, you absolute idiot.
To face the world as it is, not the world that I want it to be. And when challenges come our way, The only question is how to respond to them, not whether to respond or not. And as I respond at the budget on the 26th of November, my focus will be on getting NHS waiting lists down, getting the cost of living down, and also getting the national debt down.
Oh my goodness. Now she's saying that, oh, it's not a question of whether we respond to all the challenges, it's of if we respond, but when. She's like, oh, we've got no choice but to face the challenges, right? But most of the stuff that she is blaming, she did a whole rant about the Tories, is stuff that happened before she came into power. I mean, Brexit. We voted for Brexit in 2016, like a decade ago. With Tories were there, whilst you were sat on the opposition benches as the shadow chancellor. You were supposed to have studied their work, studied the state of the nation's finances, and be able to make promises to the public in your manifesto that correspond with that. You can't pretend now, after being sat on the opposition benches for all those years where you were meant to be shadowing the chancellor, the clues in the name, shadow chancellor, that you had no idea that we had a lot of debt and that we had high debt interest payments, and that, like, oh, I made that promise with all the knowledge that I had, but all of a sudden now I've realised that Brexit is a thing. I've actually only just realised that Liz Truss messed up the markets briefly. I've only just realised that the Tories spent a bunch of money in the 14 years over there. There's no excuse for it, woman. There's absolutely no excuse for it whatsoever. Camilla Tomney has summed up the speech very well. She says Rachel Reeves blames the Tories, Liz Truss, Brexit, global headwinds, Trump's tariffs, austerity, and the war in Ukraine. Who do voters blame? Rachel Reeves. Yes, Rachel, you can stand there for 45 minutes and beg us to blame anyone but you. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. You told us you'd fix the foundations a year ago, but you didn't. You put up taxes, you shut down business, and you made a complete and utter mess of it. Piers Morgan has tweeted saying Rachel Reeves blames everybody but herself and her government for the shocking state of the UK economy, and is clearly planning to announce massive tax rises that she and Keir Starmer repeatedly promised not to level on us. She has no idea what she is doing. I have to say, she looked completely out of her depth. When she was answering that question from Beth Rigby, you could hear it in her voice that she was so nervous that she was literally on the verge of tears. Okay, she was not confident there at all, completely out of her depth. We've got a bunch of kids running the country with no experience, it would seem. It's like you asking a toddler to run the nation's economy. No experience. None of them. Honestly, she may have been at the Bank of England for a little bit. Did she really have much private sector experience? No. None of them understand business. None of them understand entrepreneurship at all. Yes, she worked in a private-ish bank very briefly, but she claimed she was an economist when actually she was working in the complaints department because she lied on her CV. She is a liar, this woman. Anyway, that is the latest in this clown show of a government. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already, because we will keep you updated on everything going on in the news. See you next time.